All right, we will call to order the Brookings Council workshop for Monday, April 27th at 6:23 p.m. Can you please call the roll, please?
Councillor Malmberg.
Here.
Councillor Gelada.
Here.
Councillor Martin. Councillor Fulton.
Here.
Mayor Pareda.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, and we'll proceed to topics for this evening, starting with the master fee schedule.
Okay, so the master fee schedule is reviewed by staff annually to determine where changes are appropriate. The most recent 2025 master fee schedule was adopted by council on April 28, 2025, pursuant to resolution 25R 1273. In 2025, the council chose to implement a 2.7 increase. Traditionally, the city uses the Consumer Price Index for the annual increase. The CPI for February 2026 was 2.2% and was included in the proposed increase in the draft 2026 master fee schedule you have before you. The draft 2026 master fee schedule is attached, as I said. It includes a cost of living increase of 2.2% rounded to the nearest dollar on most items. These are indicated in red. Some costs are not increased annually because its increase is less than 0.5 cents or is increased by staff every few years. This year, the Finance and Public Works and Development teams recommend fees additionally increased for the Capella and Park use and a couple other fees. These figures are indicated in green. If you have any questions, staff is here to answer this.
Does this all roll up to about 2.2%? I mean, it's probably not going to be exact, but if you summed up all the fee increases next year versus this year, does it, I don't know if anybody did that sum in Excel, but do you know if it works out to be about that?
So if you look at the top here in red, each item that's in red shows where it was increased from here to 2.2 per item.
But they're rounding, and so if everything was about 2.21, 2.22, and then it all rolls up to 2.5%, you could squeeze out a few more dollars. But I don't know. I'm just asking that if we're tying this to Consumer Price Index and if it rolls up much higher, it might be able to reduce some of these charges.
I think it's going to be extremely close.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, if you might recall in our budget workshops in February, that was the rate that was given. And so as they look at doing the budget and what increases we're expecting, then the fee schedule kind of follows the same.
I'm glad to see the changes to the booking of the Capella. I think we've had some issues in the past where people were booking the Capella and then not following through, and then that potentially resulted in a loss of revenue for the city and maybe blocked out other people who really wanted to book it. So I'm glad to see that little caveat was added to the master fee.
Yeah, number 3,
That's just
caveat.
That's just rude, book something and not use it. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. And one thing I know through signing checks and discussions with Lou is that oftentimes there's first a deposit and then they come and then there's all these checks to refund. And this is increasing the cost to something that is still probably way below standard.
Still
and it's
very
such
affordable.
a fantastic spot. But also making sure that, as you mentioned, we capture those costs if people bail last minute. So that's really important because you're right, it does take opportunities away from other people. I was glad to see that as well. Yeah. And I do appreciate that we work to, I feel like this method does 2 things. One, it helps us offset the actual costs that the city incurs. but two, it does our best to keep the cost as low as possible by only passing on those costs. So I appreciate that. Councilor Fulton, do you have any questions or?
No big surprises, so, all right.
Councilor Gillette? No? Okay. All good.
So would council feel good taking this to city council now to vote on without any?
I think we have kind of had a consensus of that here, it sounds like. Well, if there's nothing else, then we can move on to the system development charges discussion. Yes.
Thank you. At the January 26, 2026 workshop, council received a staff presentation and discussion on how to move forward on policy for multifamily workforce housing SDC waivers. Also at the January 26, 2026 workshop, Jamie Batt from True Home came to discuss his request for some type of SDC waiver on his application for a building permit to build a fourplex, which he's currently under construction. Since the January workshop, the topic was discussed again at the April 13, 2026 workshop, and there has been another SDC waiver request, which Jamie is putting in a request for a waiver on his eightplex that he plans to break ground on here soon. At that workshop, the option to look at SDC waivers case by case until a formal policy is developed was discussed. This discussion ended with asking council to determine a framework and or a cap for waivers until a formal policy is developed. The policy, I think, it would be better to wait for our housing needs analysis, I think, to really kind of see where we are with that. And it'd be good to hold off on developing a policy until we have that finished. Upon completion of staff's presentation and questions and deliberation, direct staff on council preference to move forward on policy for multifamily workforce housing SDC waivers. So what I'd like to do is maybe get Jamie up to the podium again and give him an opportunity to talk about his past projects that he's done in other communities and explain again what type of waivers he received then, just as a reminder for us before we move on to any discussion on his projects here. Jamie, can you do that? Great.
Again, council, mayor, city manager, thank you guys for allowing me to speak, and I'll try not to ramble. If I do, just wave me on. So yeah, we've had the privilege of building in a few different communities. Most recently, Klamath Falls, Oregon, which a little bit of a hop, skip, and jump from here. But they're in the same boat. They need housing. They need housing desperately. Their need there continues to grow. The base is continuing to grow. And what they've realized is if you build it, they'll come, right? If you have housing, you can bring people to there to live in your city, to provide a workforce, which they are struggling. So with that said, they instituted a policy, I don't know, probably a few years ago. I know it's been at least the last 2 years, where not only the city was granting SDC credits, but the county themselves was issuing permits, half off on permits. How they worked was the city did all the planning, and then even in city limits, the county handled the building permits. So we had two different entities to deal with, but both recognized the need. The last project, actually last two projects we've done in Klamath Falls. One was a duplex. The SDC fees, if we had to pay, were going to be $28,000 for duplex. Pretty reasonable. They wiped them entirely. We paid zero. The next project that we put together on the same property was two different duplexes. I designed an ADU that's 2 units, so we put those next to the existing duplex. The STC fees would have been $30,000. And again, because we started them in a new fiscal year, we received full credit for that project, so we paid zero in STC fees. How they are doing it is they're per contractor. They're giving up to $50,000 in STC credits per calendar year. So what that did is it encouraged, obviously not just us, but encouraged other contractors to actually start building in the city as well. We're not from Klamath Falls. I reside in Medford. My partner resides in Grants Pass. Brookings is actually closer for him than Klamath Falls. So it wasn't like we were already there, but those incentives actually, they encourage us to build there. We're builders. I represent clients, mainly investors. We build mainly multifamily homes, like duplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes, eightplexes. We don't build for big developers. We build for individual people who want to get a taste into real estate investing. So for us, when we have clients that are looking to invest in an area, it's really about where they're going to get the best ROI. They have no ties to the community, which I understand it'd be nice to get people who are tied to the community to invest. But these people aren't tied to the community, but what they've done is because we're able to build at a cheaper cost, their ROI is better. So it incentivized them then to stop a project that we were going to do in Medford and take that same project and bring it over to Klamath Falls. So anyway, but that's the credits we've been getting. And again, it didn't just inspire us, it actually inspired other people to build it as well. So.
I know you're just the builder, not the investor, setting the final cost.
Right.
Do you have any kind of idea what those rates are renting for once they're completed?
I do, yeah, because I help them through the entire process. So the 3-bedroom, 2-bath duplexes that we built, they're renting around $1,800-$1,900 a month. The 1-bedroom apartments, and these are, the 1-bedroom apartments are gross lease, meaning they include all utility, including electric, are $1,400. And then the studio apartments are just under $1,000 a month. It's like $900 a month. Here, the 2 bedrooms that we're building, so the project that we're doing here is 2 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. Equitably right now, in order for that project to pencil, and we did our math, we did the comps, the 2 bedrooms are probably going to rent between $1,650 and $1,750, and the 1 bedroom is going to be probably $1,400 to $1,500. So.
And would an STC waiver help to lower that cost?
It does help to lower the cost because. So this project that we're doing right now, I think with permits and SCCs, and of course the new bill we just got from Curry County Electric, it's going to be about $100,000. So if, let's just say it was 50. Well, that $50,000 amortized, I mean, that's $250, $300 a month, even more. That's a savings on the investor that he's not paying in his mortgage payment. So if he's not paying it, it's easier to lower that rent in order to get, make things a little bit more affordable. It's not huge. I mean, you take $300 and spread it over 4 units. I mean, it's a little bit less than $100 a month, but every little bit helps.
Would the investor be interested in signing like an affidavit to control rent?
No. Main reason why is because it affects resellability. Whenever you take the power from the market, because really what rents are controlled by are controlled by the market. The more rentals you have available, the lower the rents have to be. A perfect example, we built the duplex in Klamath Falls. The vacancy rate was less than 2%. So for an investor, that's golden. Easy, get tenants in there. Well, as we all know, we are in a conflict over in Iran. A huge employer in Klamath Falls is the base. The base is empty. So now what's happened is the vacancy rate is now anywhere from 8 to 10%. Well, what that's done is it's forced landlords to lower rents just to get tenants in there. So the more availability, the lower the rent. And so that is what an investor is looking at. They're going, okay, I want to be controlled by the market. I don't want to be controlled by the government. Whenever you throw in rent control, or even when you mention rent control, I cannot tell you how many times I've had investors go, sorry. Like, they don't even want to look at it. And I'm a real estate agent as well, so I sell multifamily homes. And I've gone into situations where, I mean, the property looked like it was just an amazing buy, but then when you read the fine details as there was rent control, it's like, no, they just walked away. So, yeah, rent control really de-incentivizes investors to invest in, in a project. So, unless it's pretty significant. I don't know, I didn't really dig into the statewide incentive where if you build lower income or you had some low income units in your property that you had zero taxes for 10, 20 years. We didn't really dig into that because we weren't really interested in developing low income. We wanted market rents because we felt like that was the biggest need. And again, I know that did incentivize. There was a lot of big projects that went up in Medford because of that. But even those, again, I don't know what the percentage was that was required, but it wasn't significant. So, because I saw some big projects that went up that I saw the rents, they were market rents. So whatever the low income side of it wasn't advertised. So.
Your next project, eight unit, I think you said?
Yeah, it's one that we're trying to put together, yes.
How many bedroom, what's the makeup of the 8 units?
Yeah, so I designed, it's 3 stories. It's 450 square foot studios on the bottom. And 2 of the studios are more like a 1 bedroom, but we still consider them studios. On the bottom, and then the 2nd and 3rd floor are 2 bedroom, 2 bath, about 900 square feet.
And do we ever figure, do we know what the system, I printed out the system development fact sheet from the city's website. It looks like it's roughly $19,353 for a single family stick built, but did we calculate what the SDC charge would be for the fourplex?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's, for the fourplex, it looks like $65,735.
And then is it, so how is it calculated? Is it just that times 4 and that times 8?
No, there's a whole spreadsheet that it shows EDUs. For example, the EDU applied to a fourplex is 1.7 for water, where it's 5.3 for 8 units. So it doesn't, it just really just what it does, it jumps it into another scale. So it's not like you can just multiply the number of units and that's the SDC. There's a whole calculation that's written in here. Quite honestly, I don't understand it. Lori does. But like I say, it's.
And for the 8plex, was that done as well, or?
Yeah, exactly. The 8plex is 131,646. I just want to remind council, when we have anything to do with SDCs, deferrals or financing, we require that they enter into an agreement with the city that they would at least have the rates be at the affordable housing rates, whatever it's calculated. I think HUD puts out a calculation for different areas of the state, and based on that, you do a calculation, you can figure out what the rates would be for a 2, 1, 3-bedroom house or rental based on that. And so that, I just want to remind you that we do have those in place, and I will say that they have been, I don't recall my time here having very many financing of SDCs, I think one time, and then deferrals, I don't know that we've ever done it. I don't think any investors are not interested in it, just as Jamie's mentioned, but we'll say, we're giving money out. This isn't free money. This money comes from our account that we have specifically earmarked for this kind of thing. You give them free money out with no guarantees that the rents are going to be controlled. That's obviously your guys' decision.
Well, and even with that, rents controlled or not, we need housing.
Yep.
And so that is a reality and a hard thing to balance, right? Like we all, I mean, obviously we're going to go through this study, but we all already know that the need is here and it's real. And having moved here myself not that long ago, I know how hard it was to find a place locally. And so, yeah.
Jamie, I've got a question.
Yes.
If for this eightplex, it's going to be 131,000. If it were like, I'm just throwing a 50% off of that,
Right.
do you think that would inspire yourself and a few others to build more eightplexes?
It definitely would, because I mean, that's a huge chunk. I mean, $65,000, I mean, 2 of those, that's almost paying for a down payment for another eightplex. So that's the significance of it. It's not so much just the savings on that project. It's like you said, it's inspiring more to be built. And that's what I've found has been the best tool on bringing rents down.
Well, and according to your experience, what that shows is that as more are built, then that helps the rates go down.
Right.
So what we're presenting to you all is just to maybe come up with we don't have to obviously make a decision, and we can make multiple motions, either a percentage discount, a flat rate discount, a per unit discount. I mean, I just initially penciled out, let's say a 30% discount for the fourplex would be $22,000 off of 65. 30% discount, or let's say 32% for the eightplex would be $42,000 off. So we could use percentage numbers if you want, whatever scale you'd like to throw out there. Remember, Finance Director Lou Ehlers had mentioned that we do have an account that has money in it specifically earmarked for this kind of thing. And remember, it's not a waiver. We have to pay ourselves for those SDCs by law. So they have to come from somewhere. So we have a specific amount of money in there, and nobody's beating the door down right now, but it could potentially happen.
So is this policy a one-off, or would it be a standard policy for anyone who applies?
This would be a one-off. I think at this point, we're not really ready to develop a policy until we really know what the housing needs analysis says. Because if the housing needs analysis comes out and says, you really don't need multifamily, you need this, then I don't want to focus our policy on multifamily housing if that's not, doesn't match our HNA. So
Yeah.
this would be a one-off right now.
I think that's really wise. I think it is a great thing for us to try to, I mean, it sounds to me like the fourplex is happening, the eightplex, maybe not. So, I mean, we all know 12 places here would be big.
So right now, at a future council meeting, and so we're not in a hurry, he's under construction, we can just address the fourplex now, and then after, he fully develops his eightplex, we can look at another, I'll bring it to council for a number that you might be comfortable with.
And next steps to come to a number, would that be?
Next step
Plus,
is-
would you propose the numbers, or?
So that's why we're here, is to
Yeah.
discuss. Are we talking 20%? Are we talking 50%? What is the range you guys would like to see us hit the mark on here?
To me, it depends on how much that Lou said is available, for that
It
kind
was
of.
over $1 million.
Okay, so, yeah.
The units that were done in Klamath Falls, what were the numbers on those again?
The rent numbers?
No, the unit number.
Oh, so we had 6 total units. There were two 3-bedroom, 2 baths. And then what we're still working on right now is 1 bedroom, 1 baths, and then 2 studios.
I know, you shared the numbers, the SDC costs, and I know as we've had this conversation a number of times, one of the things that came up in an original meeting when we were talking about system development charges was that I talked about how we had looked at other communities and compared. And I was told by multiple other cities that their rates have not been looked at or addressed in a very long time. So while ours are higher than other communities, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not appropriate for the cost it actually takes us to develop the infrastructure. And just because Klamath Falls has a certain cost doesn't mean that Brookings does. By our location, by our terrain, sometimes those things just cost more money. So I do think that's important for us to keep in mind as I would love it if we could do it for nothing and help provide that need. But I don't know that that's reality, like somehow the development of the streets and the sewer and the water has to be paid for from somewhere. So, but I do, personally, I feel like, I don't know what that number is. I would love to explore and have some recommendations of what might be some good targets for us to think about. But I definitely want to do what we can to be a part of aiding housing development here, however we can.
I like the 50% number. I liked hearing what he had to say, that the 50% number reduction in cost on an 8-plex would incentivize them to move forward with that project, and that's the goal. So if that meets the goal, I'd be interested in even going as much as that. Just for now, eventually we need to do that housing needs assessment. I have a feeling it's going to show that we do need more workforce housing. We've talked about this multiple times in multiple workshops over the years, and even when I was in the planning commission, and we even have a major employer in town that's investing a great deal of money to work on a development north of town to assist with some housing for the community. So I think the community feels it's needed. We're fortunate enough in Brookings that we have a vibrant timber industry, we have a vibrant fishing industry, we have a vibrant tourism industry, but the challenge is being a coastal community. A lot of people want to live here, and it drives the housing prices up, and so people need to be able to work at those places. And so I think that sometimes having a little bit of push to assist with that is how we maintain that balance. We don't want to get to a point where we're just a tourism community. I think Brookings is in good economic shape because it has a diversified backbone of income, and we need to also think about who works at those places and all the restaurants that we enjoy going to. And so,
in fact, Mr. Carmack, the director for USDA for the state of Oregon, tomorrow morning is having a meeting with the Chinook, the South Coast. He's meeting with them tomorrow to talk about workforce housing, I think kind of per the directive of the governor and some of the other folks here in town. And that's how important it is here, especially. And, I know with the Lone Ranch, they've kind of gone back to the drawing table again because of, at one point, there's going to be a lot of, push for the single family, and now, like I said, they're realizing with their own workforce over there, and he was very clear. He said, "We're not talking about like just low income. We're just talking about workforce housing," and that's how important it is. And so I agree. It's at some point, we do realize we have a like Tony said, it's over $1 million, and that's a good start for us to draw from. But I feel like we're just letting it sit there and just keep kicking the can down the road. We're not going to see fourplexes, eightplexes, coming into the community, and we've got a huge need. Mayor Pareda, I felt the same pain when I got here. There was literally nothing for me to rent where I could find, and it had to be a few connections there. And then when I did get the rental property, we were about after 6 or 7 months, we were told, okay, because it's on a month-to-month basis, I want my house back. And I'm like, oh no. And then it was a mad scramble in the 60 days to go find something. So I think this is at the forefront right now, and I appreciate Jamie coming in and being honest with us and explaining to us the needs here. So, but bringing this to you guys as a one-off I think is important now. Like Tony said, until we get the H&A finished. But I don't think there's going to be any shock to any of us once the H&A is finished that the recommendations or the analysis that are going to be pushed forward is going to show we need a lot more workforce housing. And that's one of the things we kind of visited with Mr. Carmack about. We have a lot of people that want to come into town and buy second homes here. I live in an area where it's a ton of second homes, and which, it's got its good and bad things, but the good thing is we have people coming in and tourists and so forth. But it's tying up housing, and that's what on down the road we've like I say, in order for this community to grow, and economic development drivers that are out there. Right now it's timber. We may end up diversifying on down the road. More towards technology. So in order for us to do that, we're going to have housing available. So
it's a delicate balance, right? Because we do depend on those things, but it's really unfortunate when those who work in a community aren't able to live in a community. And I know we have people who live south of us in a whole nother state because they can't find a home here. So I think it's important.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, early on in my journey when I decided to leave Oklahoma back in 2014, and I was a finalist in a couple positions in the Bay Area. And I thought it was crazy because they were talking about, I was a finalist for a position. I think they had about 250 employees there. And I asked, how many of the employees actually live here? And it was in San Bruno. And she said 2 actually can afford to live in San Bruno. 2. The rest are all commuting back and forth. And it kind of reminds me, and we're not in the same boat here, but we don't want to get to that point to where we're having people having to commute, from Crescent or whatever to come work here. Because I think it's important for that quality of life instead of spending an hour and a half, some folks 2 hours a day commuting back and forth. We want them to have some housing available here. So, but we're inching toward that.
So absolutely, we need this type of housing. Teachers, we can't even get teachers to come here and be able to make a living and do that. I'm going to bring a little bit more of a conservative percent to the table, just to put it out here, because for me, we will have to develop a policy pretty darn really quick. And I would hate to say that we gave one person such a large piece and others such a smaller piece after the set effect. So for me, looking at our citizens' dollars, because we have $1 million in there, but just giving, and I think you've done great. I love you. You're wonderful to tell us all this information. That's what I love. But I would probably look for myself at about a 35%. I don't know if that makes it go down or less. It's certainly, and I probably wouldn't put a total for like a calendar year. I mean, if you're gonna build housing, come in and build housing. But I would just probably myself just feel a little bit more on that conservative, so when that policy does come through, that it kind of probably falls in line with it. But that's just my piece.
And I think I've heard a couple numbers. There was a 50% off the 8 unit or 30% off both. They're both about $60,000. It ends up being. So with 12 units on the table and some money and no policy to support it, I would support. I don't know what the right number is, and we need to come up with that. But and then it's waiting for the housing needs analysis to try to come up with a policy here.
Councilor Malmberg, were you considering 50%? You mentioned the 8 unit, which hasn't been submitted for or fully designed yet. 4 units on the table now. Are you consider 50% for the 4 unit?
Yeah, and that's, and here's why, maybe you can answer. How many 8-plexes or 4-plexes have been built in Brookings in the last 5 years? None? Probably none, right?
It's a good comment, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
none.
haven't seen any in the 10 years I've been here, but that could be a stretch. And the reason, so that's why I'm saying I would be okay with being a little bit more aggressive. I fear that being too conservative would have not the effect we're looking for. We have a developer that's willing to come into town, that's willing to give us what we think we need, and I think waiting for the second developer to come around, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. I don't think it's happened in the last 10 years at all. So I'm not super concerned with giving a developer that's here a 50% discount on the SDCs and then thinking, oh man, we got 10 more developers all of a sudden knock on our doors. I don't think that's going to happen. It hasn't happened for a very long time. So that's why I feel like I think it'd be okay to be a little bit more aggressive and be a little bit more helpful. So that's why I said that.
And council isn't interested in any kind of ties to the money as far as like 3 to 5 year rent control or in good faith for the amount?
I wouldn't want to include a rent control thing if it was going to scare them off. It kind of defeat the purpose, in my opinion. But
To me, the bigger concern is that it's available for people who actually live and work here. And I don't know that there's a way to work that in, but that's my concern. My concern is, that it's, and I think with a rental versus a sale, that's not likely that somebody's going to come here to rent for, seasonal. So I feel like with a rental, that's a little more secure. When we get into sales, that's a different story to me. But the last thing I want is to incentivize a lower cost for a builder that goes out the door to somebody who is not part of our community when we're trying to develop this for our community.
So is your concerns like kind of like a second home?
A second home or a rental, like purely investment and not really something that's, our need is for people who live in Brookings to be able to have homes to live in. And so I don't want to see those homes walk out the door for people who don't live here.
Yeah.
That's my concern. Like I said, for rentals, I would highly doubt that's likely. But as we move forward and explore this discussion further when it comes to sales, that's a whole different thing in my mind.
And that's why I asked about the size, because I think somebody's not going to get a 500 square foot studio as a second home. It's targeting a community, a particular set of the community.
And the SDC for a 500 square foot unit is the same as a 10,000 square foot unit.
Yeah.
So it's,
And that's what we experienced on this. Like, we designed this to try to keep the cost down. It's only 2,200 square foot. Well, your average fourplex might be 3,500 to 4,000. So we're like half the size, but we're still getting hit by the same SDCs, which really it affects the cost per square foot significantly.
I do think, as Councilor Malmberg pointed out, we don't have people knocking down our doors to build. And we do have the need. I feel like moving forward and exploring this is gonna give us a little bit of picture of what can happen, and then when the units are built, like how quickly do those fill up? Those will give us something to look at and move forward from, I think, also.
Again, this is just a one-off. If we come back, later and adjust, make some, with the council's approval, make some decisions to maybe not be 50% or whatever the number comes up to be, and, taper it back some. That's kind of where we are right now. So, but yeah, it would, like I said, there's definitely a need for this type of housing.
Is Lori on? Is Lori on?
Yes, she is on.
Okay, I think one last question that I'd like to ask her is if there's any legal ramifications or any challenges that might come up with a one-off for SDCs, just as a...
That's excellent. Thank you for bringing that up.
She has unmuted herself.
You have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can.
Okay, I can't hear you guys now. Yeah, I guess you don't need to hear me, I heard the question. I would have to look into that, Tony. I think there's a little danger in doing what you guys are calling a one-off. It's, best to have a policy. And, if another developer comes in a month or two, and there could be some claims of unequal treatment, perhaps. So I need to look into that. I have very little experience with this kind of thing, SDC waivers or reductions, but I know that the cities I've worked with that have had those and had policies in place so that everybody can be, rated on the same scale as to whether you're going to give it to one and not another type thing. So that is a concern. It's a good question, and I can try to get an answer for you in the next,
I do believe, Lori, there are some cities that at the beginning of each year, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, they'll put like a pot of money out there and say, it's kind of a first come, first serve, we're going to do $500,000 this year. And, and so that's out there too. So it's kind of, it's not exactly, but kind of similar to what we're looking at here as well. So
We could write a simple policy and just for a 2-year period and say 50% off anything over a fourplex or fourplex and above, not duplexes, not single family, but fourplexes and above.
Yeah, I was going to suggest something
That could be the policy
related to volume.
for now.
Yeah, and so if we have lots of builders that come in and want to build 8 units, great. Yeah,
Okay.
We'll solve the problem later. Yeah.
the issue is, finding builders like Jamie that are going to come here and make it work, make the numbers work, because it's, it's remote, and you have to be able to find contractors and subcontractors that are going to be working with you. I know, just talking recently to one of my neighbors is just trying to get some work done on his deck, and he's been here a year now, and he's still, trying to find somebody to do it. So it's tough.
We could potentially put a policy together that we know we're going to revisit once we have that housing needs assessment. So the policy is available and there for everybody, but knowing that, hey, in the very near future, we're going to take a real close look at it and maybe make some adjustments if we need to. That's an idea.
Does that sound reasonable, Lori, you think? We could just develop a...
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And something occurs to me as you're talking, and it's something the mayor brought up a little while ago, but the concern of, multifamily housing, for instance, the mayor said that renting, her concern is making sure stuff stays in the rental pool, so a lot of working folks to be able to live in Brookings. And I know that in some other cities, and again, I'm reaching way back in my memory here, but I know there's sometimes some strings attached, some covenant put into an agreement or a deed or whatever that says it has to remain as a rental for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, because I know some places have experienced where there would be some assistance with building multifamily housing, and then when the market got real hot, those private buildings became condominiums and then to private ownership. So there's those kind of concerns as well. So there's maybe some strings that can be attached. I don't want to complicate things for you, but I just that kind of went up on my brain when I heard you talking about that. So that's something I could look into at some point if you guys really want me to. But yes, I think it's temporary, a 2-year policy, and you state what your purpose is, what the need is, why the city feels this is something that needs to happen, and I think you should be okay, as long as it's spelled out and everybody's on the same page, and folks coming in to give them some help and some money for development are all treated in the same way. So yes.
I appreciate that input, and I think that's an excellent point. And I personally, I would say yes, please explore that. I think it's necessary piece of this conversation.
We could probably have something by the next council meeting, a draft of a policy and ready to go.
That sounds
So
reasonable to you.
the range is between 50 and 35% right now. Should I make 3 motions to vote on? 35%, 40%, 50%?
I hear the conservative rate, and I appreciate that. I also hear Councilor Malberg's input, and being on the planning commission, he knows very well what has come up. And personally, I'm agreeable to the 50 to get something. We can always readdress policies, right?
Yes.
It seems like being more aggressive is warranted to try to bring in builders. If it's true, we're not, there hasn't been an 8-unit building here in a long time.
For this
The
season.
worst thing that's going to
anyways.
happen is people start coming in and asking for these discounts.
We do have one project on the horizon that potentially could take advantage of this, and that's the Lucky Lane project that, we could see another contractor in here.
And maybe the policy addresses how much money is available?
Yeah. Maybe we do a cap for,
The first year, yeah.
Yeah.
You got a number?
Here we go.
I trust you to come up with something
Okay.
reasonable.
I'll let Lou do that. Which won't be much. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, those have been sitting there for how long, building and
2020.
interest, so, yeah, I mean, that's 26 years. That's a long time.
2020 is when.
6 years.
2020,
Six
oh,
years.
2020,
That pot-
2020,
that pot
yeah,
was
6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Did you have something?
Well, I was going to say, I think you can probably test. So when it comes to converting apartments to condos, it's so difficult now that it's not really that cost effective, because the firewall requirements for a condo are completely different from the firewall requirements for like a multifamily home. So yeah, it would
Be challenging.
Yeah, it would be
It would be
very,
for
very
that
challenging.
unit,
I
that
think-
complex it would be.
In the past, I know that happened. She was right. I mean, we saw a lot of that go in, and unfortunately, I also saw a lot of contractors go bankrupt trying to do it. So, yeah, no desire for that.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sounds like we're ready to move forward. So we'll move to discussions regarding upcoming counselor vacancy.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, tonight, briefly would like to discuss with you some options in regards to an upcoming vacancy, and that happens to tie into the same time the registration or, the filing period for candidates that are out, they're coming up. As we know, Councilor Fulton is soon to be fully retired and moving out of the city limits just a little bit. And unlike our mayor who just went across the street, you're going several states away, and deservingly so. So we've got a position that we know it's going to be coming up fairly soon. And the more I've talked to our city recorder, who is, of course, in charge of our election process here in town and making sure that we stay in line with what's legal. And I wanted to just quickly discuss. Originally, we had talked to Councilor Fulton about a June 8th time where she would resign and we would select her replacement at that point. There's a couple little caveats there that we've discussed. The actual filing period is June 3rd. through August the 4th, or August 4th for incumbents, August 11th for non-incumbents. If we go with the June 8th, I think one thing, and I think talk to someone on the council, I think the last thing we want to do is, have somebody who wants to sit on the council that for just 6 months and then, call it good. I think, we're going to have somebody that's going to be committed to filing because her seat is up for reelection this November. So I think it's important for us to kind of think ahead here. We've got the mayor's position as well as positions 3 and 4, Councilor Martin as well. So in all terms, we'll start on January the 11th, of course. So we kind of have kicked around some ideas, and I did reach out to a couple when Councilor Gelada was appointed to the council. We had 2 other candidates that came up and interviewed as well, and Tony Bond and Nick Chapman came up here, and both did a great job with theirs, and council selected Councilor Gelada. And I do know Councilor Fulton has indicated we have somebody else that might be interested in the position. So I think we're looking at, with this council, looking at a date specific as to when we'll have the official resignation and the selection of the counselor, if possible, and the selection process. And I visited with our city attorney a little bit about this, and it's, we can kind of be a little bit flexible there as well. The process on how we do this. Do we just want to invite the 3 that have shown interest, or do we open it up for everybody to come back again? And I did talk to, Lori a little bit also about, the fact, are they going to have to go back and redo their entire application again and start over from scratch, or is this something we can just accept, knowing that, if none of the information has changed, that we can just move forward with that. So I think the issue with the June 8th is, unfortunately, is because June 3rd is when the date of the initial file, is it?
The first day.
The first filing.
That you can file.
Yeah. So we're not having a meeting on the May 25th because that's Memorial Day. So we talked about possibly, Brooklyn and I were talking about possibly going to having a special meeting on June 1st with one agenda item just to talk about this. And at that point, Councilor Fulton would resign at the meeting, and then we would go through the process of selecting. But if we're going to do so, we're going to have to move fairly quickly, because if we want to open it up again like we did last time, we've got to have kind of a initial time to accept the applications and a time to close it, and then to make sure that the applicants will be available for the interviews with the council. So this is a workshop. We're just kind of spitballing it, and just trying to figure out which direction the council would move forward. Also, it's very important also because we have, when Councilor Fulton resigns, we'll only have 4 votes. So that brings, and so we talked about this last time. If it's a 2-2, then we'll have to have a actual flip of the coin to decide, which I'd rather not have, but sometimes that happens.
Is that in the bylaws?
Yeah, well, it's according to our city attorney, that's the way we have to go. So I actually witnessed a city that had thousands of votes, and they did multiple recounts, and it was like 2,400 and whatever to 2,400 and whatever. They were both dead tied, and they settled it at a council meeting with a coin toss.
Hopefully we can go into deliberations until we come up with a single, like they do with the jury, you know what I mean? Like, they're guilty or not guilty.
So with the filing dates going out into August, what's the urgency to make it happen? I know Christie has an early June, but what's the difference of June 1st versus June 8th?
The only reason why I said that is because technically And I doubt if this is going to happen, but if somebody went and filed on June 3rd for that position, and then it would kind of muddy the water, because if somebody went and filed at the county or whatever and said, this is what we want, I'm going to file for this office, and then on June 8th we go, wait a second, somebody else is going to take that seat, and this person isn't interested in putting their name in the hat currently, it could really, that's where it can muddy the water, to answer your question.
But I suppose it could happen anyway. Whatever date we do it, they could file on August 10th.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're exactly right.
And the other thing is, don't forget, I mean, again, we don't want to be in a deadlock with the numbers, but we do have 60 days to appoint following the vacancy.
Yeah.
So,
And that 60 days would be,
I believe it depends on the date, so if it's June 8th, it would be August 7th.
August
If it's
7th.
June 1st, it would be,
yeah, and clearly we don't want to do that. Like, we want to get on it as quickly as possible.
Yes. Yeah, there's no guarantees that if this person that is appointed by the council, that they won't draw, somebody else in the race as well, so.
I kind of feel like we need to open it up. I mean, just to be fair. I get that we've had a couple of people that were interested in the past, but there could be a couple other people now that are interested as well that could be, just as good or better. And I think, just in all fairness, especially because the timing of it, and there could potentially be, someone who is running for it that didn't get the opportunity to apply. I think if you just open it up and be fair about it, then it gives everyone the same platform, and no one could complain that there was any unfairness.
I'm in full agreement, and that was my take. Also, I think also there's people who maybe weren't qualified weren't able to fulfill the specifications of residency and whatever, who maybe would be now.
Yep.
So it maybe is a pool of potential candidates that, or maybe they didn't have time to get their application in or whatever. So I would prefer to do the same.
So if maybe we went from May 1st, what is the May 30th or 31st? What day of the week does that fall on? I don't guess it really matters.
May 31st is a Sunday.
Sunday. But the first, that wouldn't give you guys time to review the applications. I'm trying to say, if we had the window open for the application process, if we just opened it up again, excuse me, and then but give the council some time to review the applications. So maybe if we did it the Friday before that, so like May 1st to...
Before what date?
Before the June 1st date. Or are you thinking about sticking with the June 8th?
Well,
That's
I want to ask Councilor Fulton, it's her position. She gets to decide
How long is she gonna-
if she wants to
You're going
resign.
to give up a lot of pay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you would rather have those hours in your day back, but.
No, it's been definitely a privilege to do this, and I want, from the very beginning, I was very open about when I was going to be leaving Brookings, and so I just, whatever you guys agree on is good for me. I can resign earlier, I can resign later, whatever you need. I am totally here for this community, so it's whatever you guys deem best, I'm totally good with it.
Is there a length of time we have to post
There is no set time. In the past, we've done around a month. I would feel comfortable doing 3 weeks at the latest personally, but that is up to council.
Personally, I feel like as quickly as we can move on it, the better. It gives people more time to act and to fill that out. I would hope that we can find out from Lori Cooper whether or not we can just keep the previous applications and not make them go through filling it out again unless they wanted to. But yeah, I think the quicker we can move, the better.
Well, if we have, Councilor Fulton's mentioned that she'd be available until June 8th, and so if we were to advertise that vacancy now. That gives us a full month for people to apply, us to review applications, and then potentially at that same meeting or later in the meeting after Counselor Fulton resigns, and we could do some interviews, or even the next day, whatever.
We could go from May 1st to May 31st. That's a full month, and then do it at the June 8th meeting. I mean, as planned.
And that would give us some time to.
Give you a full
review.
week.
I like
Give you a
that
full
idea.
week to review the application, so. Then we wouldn't have to have a special meeting either, so.
And then we're not pushing Counselor Fulton out, or
A week early.
we're making her hang on longer than she wanted to.
Yeah, I'm happy to have her every day. She's willing to serve.
She set that target. Let's respect that target and
Yeah.
see if we can work
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, do we have any other issues you can think of?
Well, so May 1st is a Friday. Would it be agreeable to do May 4th? That way it's a Monday, and if for some reason applications come in. I can receive-
Do they have to come in and pick them up by hand? They can go online and
No,
go.
but typically people drop them off. I don't want to announce that they can do that on a Friday.
I
And you
got
said
That
you
makes
thought
sense.
3 weeks minimum was
Yeah.
acceptable, and I
Is
don't know what
there-
that works out to, but it's probably 4. If May
And the
4th
thing
to-
is, I can post tomorrow a press release and have the application ready. They can pick it up whenever, but I just won't receive it until Monday, May 4th. If that's agreeable to you guys.
It's agreeable to me.
Yep.
May 4th through May 31st, or June 1st?
Probably that Friday,
June 1st.
Yeah, June 1st, I'll give you a whole week.
or whatever that Friday is, right, at the end of May.
Well, that's the 29th, but we can go
That'd be
to the
that'd be a
Monday.
4-week advertisement.
Yeah,
Well, and Friday the city hall is closed.
yeah. So May 1st, or June 1st, so May 4th through June 1st would probably be the easiest. All right. Sounds like we have a plan. That's all we needed, is just kind of get some general direction. That's why we decided to do it at a workshop as opposed to trying to pin each other down to do that, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's great, and it's good that we could have that open public discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, then, I guess if there's nothing else, we will close at 7:24.